Welcome to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our flagship stations, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today, as always, you can also find us on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99 on Birmingham area municipal access and City Cable 15 in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area and in Southfield. Join us on Channel 10 on the media network of Waterford in Waterford and Waterford Township live every single day on our program, as well as live to tape in Orion Township and Lake Orion at 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. on Orion Neighborhood Television, or ON TV. Find us also on the radio, 88.1 The Biff, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District with 24/7 operations out of Bloomfield Hills High School, and online on Facebook at Civic Center TV 15 and at Lakes FM, and on our website, civiccentertv.com, and just click on our Watch Live link at the top of the homepage or in the drop-down menu on the left margin of the screen on most mobile devices. You can also find us online as well as on your smartphone and smart TV from My Michigan TV, who will join us from 11 o'clock to noon live every single day. Learn more information at mymytv.com, mymytv.com to learn more info, or go to our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast to learn more information about all of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets that join us every day. We have links to their websites so you can learn more about the programming that they do Monday through Friday in the 22 hours of the day outside of our regular Megacast program, as well as on the weekends. civiccentertv.com/megacast, where each of our full episodes and every single interview are posted on demand as well. Right next door to that on civiccentertv.com is our coronavirus page by clicking on coronavirus or typing in civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, where we're at the top of the page. We have links to the COVID-19 specific web pages for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division, so that you can stay up to date on everything that you need to know about COVID-19, including the spread of the virus, including different variants of the virus that are currently out in our communities and will continue to be out in our communities in the future. Precautionary tactics that you can employ in your daily life, at work, at home, out on the town, in common places where people gather, such as grocery stores and pharmacies and so on. Learn more information about that from these links, and of course information at the local level in Oakland County and throughout the state, and more information from the federal government as well, from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, by clicking on those links at the top of our page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, where just below that we explore news outlets and publications throughout the state of Michigan every morning before we do our live program to find the stories that are affecting the state of Michigan all across the Great Lakes state, our top stories and headlines every single day from great news outlets, and we provide links to those articles as well as the bulk of the articles, or a summary of those articles and their most important information from these different news outlets, links to their articles so you can read that article, the supporting materials from that article, as well as their other articles. And while you're there visiting these publications' websites, we highly encourage you, should you have the means to do so, to subscribe to these publications and support local journalism. Our top story today is from Lansing, where Michigan Republicans have said to Governor Whitmer, "We dare you to veto the income tax cuts." Ooh. Well, I triple dog dare you to read along with this story at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Michigan's Republican-led Senate on Thursday gave final approval to a $2.5 billion plan that would cut individual income tax, expand senior relief, and create a child tax credit, but force unspecified spending cuts in future years. The election year proposal now heads to Governor Whitmer's desk, putting pressure on the first-term Democrat to sign a plan that is considerably larger than her $757 million tax cut proposal. Whitmer's office says she's, quote, all in on cutting taxes for seniors and working families, and closed quote, but the governor is expected to veto a GOP plan that she calls, quote, fiscally irresponsible and unsustainable, and closed quote. Given nonpartisan projections, it could force more than $1 billion in annual spending cuts despite one-time federal stimulus funds. Republicans contend the state budget is large enough to allow for tax cuts. One-time stimulus funds helped grow the Michigan government budget from $58 billion in 2019 to $63 billion in 2021. Quote, every Michigander needs help at this time of record high inflation, supply chain shortages, and communities struggling to recover from shutdowns, and closed quote, said sponsoring Senator Eric Nesbitt, a Republican from Lawton. Senator Nesbitt continued on, quote, "No Michigander has been immune from the state of our economy, and no Michigander should be left behind when it comes to providing substantive tax relief," end closed quote. The GOP plan brokered by House and Senate leaders would reduce Michigan's individual income tax rate from 4.25% annually to just 3.9%. That would cut taxes for millions of Michiganders, everyone except those who don't earn enough to pay taxes. But high earners who pay the most tax would save, of course, the most money based on that percentage cut. A family of four with an income of $63,829, the median for Michigan in 2020 would save $153 next year. For instance, a family of four with $200,000 in earnings, which would put it in the top 5% of earners, would save about $630. The GOP plan, approved by the Senate in a 22-15 party line vote, would also create a $500 per child tax credit for families, and it would double a senior income tax exemption from $20,000 to $40,000 for an individual, while lowering the qualifying age from 67 years old to 62 years old. As part of the deal with the House GOP, Senate Republicans agreed to drop a $490 million corporate tax cut from the package, now heading to Governor Whitmer's desk. But the upper chamber approved separate standalone legislation on Thursday that would cut the corporate tax rate from 6% to 3.9%. Please note, that tax cut significantly larger than those to individuals, sending the proposal back to the House for additional consideration. Michigan is flush with roughly $7 billion in federal stimulus funds and another $7 billion in surplus, but federal rules generally prohibit states from using stimulus money to pay for tax cuts. To comply with the federal law, the nonpartisan Senate Fiscal Agency projects that Michigan would have to generate new revenue or cut spending by $4.1 billion across the next 3 fiscal years in order to pay for the GOP proposed tax cut. Quote, "The legislation will create a massive, ongoing, multi-billion-dollar budget deficit that could force future tax cuts or painful cuts to public schools, road repairs, and police and fire protection," end close quote. Governor Whitmer warned Thursday in a letter to legislative leaders. Quote, Governor Whitmer continued on saying, quote, "It is my sincere hope that we can now come together to negotiate a compromise that fully considers a budget alongside any tax policy decisions while putting the people of Michigan first," end close quote. Governor Whitmer continued, requesting a meeting next week with GOP leadership. Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, a Republican from Clark Lake, criticized the governor's comments, saying, quote, "A sure sign someone has been in government too long, as if they're trying to convince you the bureaucracy can't afford a $2.5 billion tax cut when it has an $8 billion surplus," end close quote, he said in the statement. Continuing on, Senator Shirkey continued by saying, quote, "The governor's veto threat is a slap in the face of Michigan residents struggling to fill their gas tanks and pay for groceries at a time of record inflation," end close quote. Governor Whitmer's plan would expand the earned income tax credit for low and middle income workers from 6% to 20% of the federal version, reversing a 2012 cut to the state level program. The administration estimates 738,400 households would benefit, with an average credit increasing by more than $300 per year. $300 a year, as Whitmer and GOP leaders both eye tax cuts. A business coalition is urging an even larger earned income tax credit expansion. A bill proposed by Senator Wayne Schmidt, a Republican from Traverse City, would increase the credit to 30% of federal income, federal level for 4 years, eventually boosting the credit by an average of $460. The credit is, quote, "explicitly designed to encourage greater participation in the workforce because it is only available to families that work," end close quote. Local chambers of commerce from Detroit, Grand Rapids, Ann Arbor, Flint, and other regions wrote in a letter to Governor Whitmer and GOP leaders, quote, "In a time when many employers are having difficulty filling available jobs, the earned income tax credit has a proven track record of putting people in the workforce." That full article on this big dare from the GOP to Governor Whitmer on the budget cuts, tax cuts, on our website, civiccentertv.com, so you can read that full article and supporting materials from Bridge, Michigan. Also making headlines yesterday, a really interesting story from our friends at the Detroit Free Press. A shipwreck discovered in Lake Superior after 130 years of being missing is, quote, "still beautiful." After searching more than 2,500 miles of the bottom of Lake Superior, the Atlanta, a 172-foot schooner, a schooner barge that sank during a terrible storm, has been found preserved in the icy water just as it was when it went down more than 130 years ago. Even the gold letters of the ship's nameplate are still visible. Quote, "It is truly ornate and still beautiful," said Bruce Flinn, executive director of the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society. Continuing on, he said, quote, it is rare that we find a shipwreck that so clearly announces what it is, and the name board of the Atlanta really stands out," and closed quote. The discovery, which the Society announced earlier on this week, solves another mystery of what happened to hundreds of vessels swallowed by the lake and offers historians a window into the past. The shipwreck is sitting 650 feet between Lake Superior's surface, about 35 miles away from Deer Park and Lucey County in the Upper Peninsula. In that depth, which is beyond what a human diver in sunlight can reach, the water is in the low to mid-30s, a temperature that preserves shipwrecks. It gives you a sense of what it was like to travel on the Great Lakes during dangerous conditions before the Coast Guard, modern technology to predict the weather, communication with others, and navigation software. And Society spokesperson Corey Adkins said the discovery may also give descendants of the crew that didn't survive some peace. Quote, "Many people out there think the Edmund Fitzgerald is the only shipwreck on the lakes," and closed quote, continuing on saying, quote, "While it's an important shipwreck on the lake, 29 men lost their lives on it. 5 people lost their lives on the Atlanta. Quote, he said, quote, "Their stories, quote, don't deserve, for lack of any better term, to get washed away." There's got to be a better term than that. There's more than 6,000 Great Lakes shipwrecks which have taken the lives of 30,000 mariners, according to the Society. Of those, there are about 550 wrecks, most of which are undiscovered in Lake Superior alone. The Society has a shipwreck museum at Whitefish Point. To find the shipwreck, more than 2,500 miles of Lake Superior were mapped by the Society last summer with marine sonic technology using side-scan sonar, a sonar system for detecting and imaging objects on the sea floor. Multiple sonar sensors, called a transducer array, send and receive acoustic pulses that help map the lake floor and detect objects. In this case, it detected the Atlanta. Records show the ship sank on May 4th of 1891. Its home was Port Huron, and it was bound with a load of coal in tow of the steamer Wilhelm when both vessels got caught in the northwest gale. In the storm, the tow line winch snapped. The crew took it to the lifeboat. They pulled at the oars for hours and eventually came within sight of Crisp Point life-saving station, but while attempting to land, the boat overturned twice and only 2 men made it safely to the beach. The survivors said all 3 masts broke off during the storm, and video from a remote-operated vehicle confirmed that account. All 3 masts broke off flush with the deck, and the hull is starting to split. Quote, "It was tough out there for them," Adkins said, continuing on. "If anyone is seeing this, reading this, and you are one of the family members, a great and great-great-grandchild of the crew, please contact us." More information on that found shipwreck of the Atlanta and information from the Great Lakes Shipwreck Society on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, in this article from the Detroit Free Press. Lastly, making headlines today, also from Bridge, Michigan, Michigan State University will be relaxing its COVID-19 mask mandate. The university will loosen its mask requirements effective Sunday of this week, said University President Dr. Samuel Stanley Jr. To the campus via an email. Masks will no longer be required in most indoor settings on MSU property, including offices, libraries, and dining halls, but they will still be required in classrooms, labs, and research spaces when there is instruction being done or research being conducted. Masks will also continue to be required in buses and in healthcare facilities. Faculty, staff, and students are still required to be vaccinated and boosted against COVID-19 or get an exemption, according to the Thursday email. But MSU athletics events will no longer require a mask and proof of vaccination. Quote, "Masks are still strongly recommended for those who are unvaccinated, have symptoms of COVID-19, have been exposed to the virus, or are medically vulnerable," and close quote. From the email. The president encouraged people to respect individuals' decisions if they choose to continue masking. Students are on spring break next week. The news comes after the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention at the federal level relaxed its mask guidelines last week Friday, with the CDC urging continued mask usage only in counties with high risk levels. MSU's East Lansing campus is, of course, in Ingham County, which is currently listed at a medium level and thus is considered a mask-optional county by the CDC. In Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan still has an indoor mask requirement in effect as well. That's actually on all their campuses, not just the Ann Arbor campus. And there is a supporting link in this article from Bridge, Michigan, posted on our website, civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. We have a good program ahead of you today on this Friday edition of the Megacast. Coming up next, Tania Smyk, a Ukrainian student at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit and also a member of the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan, will join us to talk about the continuing crisis related to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. At 10:40, we'll be joined by Senator Mallory McMorrow, a Democrat from the 13th District here in Oakland County. At 11 o'clock, we'll kick off the Michigan Megacast with Kelli Waite, a social worker and director of admissions and programs at the Rose Hill Center that's located in Holly, Michigan. At 11:20, Bob Ennis, the president and the founder of the Ennis Center for Children, will join us, and we'll cap off the week's program with Kanika Littleton, the director of the Michigan Alliance for Families, at 11:40. That's all coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
Or the Huron River Watershed Council.
we work together to protect water resources for everyone.
Most of the pollution entering our rivers is carried by rainwater that runs off roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
a rain garden helps catch stormwater runoff.
Rain gardens and their plants help dirty runoff soak into the ground.
You can do your part to help keep our water clean.
Learn about rain gardens and native plants.
So consider a rain garden in your home landscaping.
Catch the runoff with a rain garden.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. You can learn more about the Oakland County Megacast by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com and clicking on our Megacast link, where you'll find links to every single one of our partnering stations and find every single full episode and individual interview on demand. Joining us now is Tania Smyk. She is a Ukrainian student at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit and is also a member of the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan. Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast. Tania, thank you for being with us. Appreciate having you on. So first off, we're about a week, at this point, 9 days into Russia's sudden invasion of Ukraine. As you continue to see, and of course, you were not born in Ukraine, but you are of Ukrainian descent. You have a Ukrainian background. And so this is something that is close to home for you, of course, being part of the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan. It's something that you clearly are passionate about. So now that we're about a week in, things continue to develop. Russia continues to persist. They're now targeting civilians directly, which is a war crime. What are your continued, what's your continued reaction, and what emotion do you and others on the committee feel as this crisis continues on and really continues to escalate, with Russia now targeting civilian targets and critical infrastructure as well in Ukraine?
It's been extremely, extremely concerning, to say the least. I mean, many of us whether we were born there and came here, or whether we were born here with parents who were born here and greater. I mean, we're all feeling the effects of this as a community. And I think it's important to point out that at this point, you know, the term crisis and invasion, it's beyond that. It's a war, and it's a genocide that's happening over there. They're targeting innocent civilians, and absolutely, just like you said, this is a war crime.
Yeah, there seems to not be any sort of endgame motivation behind this. When you're targeting civilians, that's one thing. That is a war crime. That's heinous and that's disgusting. But you're also targeting major cities, major buildings, government areas, critical infrastructure, and in some cases completely leveling it, which seems to lead one to believe that this is personal. This is entirely about toppling a group of people that are close to your border, that are directly bordering your nation, because you are paranoid about the relationship with some other nations that are either neutral toward you or open adversaries. As this has continued on, as this invasion, this war, this genocide has continued on the Russian part on the behalf of Ukrainians, the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Team, what has their continued reaction been here, and particularly in speaking to our leadership at the state level and the federal level, and encouraging the American response to this threat, the continued threat on an ally of ours?
So in recent days, we've expanded our committee. So we have a lot more people filling roles as our group is getting larger and well-known. We're continuing to provide resources for people who live in Michigan and America, so they can properly donate to vetted sources and donate their goods or funds to these reputable sources so that they know where their money is going. It's important to point out that there is a lot of propaganda even circulating in the US, so it's important to be aware of what is proper over there and what is proper news these days. And our goal really is to just keep people informed and let the population, especially in America here, know that this is something that is going to affect us here eventually, if it hasn't already.
So have you or others recently on your committee, have you been in contact with those that are still in Ukraine or attempting to flee Ukraine and to nations that are accepting refugees regularly? I mean, we've already heard in just this past week, over 1 million people already have fled to other nations as refugees because of this heinous act of violence from Russia. Have you been in contact with anyone? And as things have continued to escalate, how have their feelings shifted, being in the thick of things and being directly in danger?
Well, so a lot of us are in contact with people who are trying to flee. I know last time I checked, we do have a group of legal people, of attorneys who are on board for helping people get their visas, get their green cards, get refugee status in order so that they can come join their family members if their family members live in the United States. A lot of people are fleeing to Poland, Hungary, Romania, and other countries in Europe just because that visa status, it takes a lot shorter of time. So we're really right now trying to urge the United States to just quicken the process to open its borders for Ukrainian refugees. And actually, I'm personally headed out to Romania tomorrow morning to go assist with refugees on the border city of Siret.
We're joined by Tania Smyk, a Ukrainian student at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, also a member of the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. And so we mentioned the communication between the committee and leadership in the state of Michigan, and we have to look also at the response from the United States of America to this to the war in Ukraine that's been perpetrated by the Russian government, a government that's continued to have negotiations both with the Ukrainian government and with other allied governments in NATO and in nations that are surrounding Russia but are not necessarily in NATO. And it seems like nothing is coming of that. In the U.S., the reaction continues to be more sanctions on the Russian government, on Russian banking institutions, on oligarchs that are directly connected and are bankrolling Vladimir Putin and his regime. Do you believe, and do others on your committee believe, that this response from the federal government, especially as things have continued to escalate in major cities and even in smaller cities along the way to places like Kyiv in Ukraine, has been enough from the U.S. government?
It's been something. it is not, honestly, it's not enough. It's gotten to the point where Russian forces are taking charge and exploding these major energy sources in Ukraine. And we've reached a point where we need more than just sanctions. Sanctions are wonderful for toppling an economy and targeting people involved in an economy. But at this point, with the status of war, with the pending status of genocide, it's reached a greater importance than just sanctions. And
so what more do you and members of your committee believe or are at this point requesting of our leaders here in Michigan that are representative in the federal government that could have influence on the federal government to provide to Ukrainians on the front lines, considering that the crisis continues to escalate, the violence continues to escalate from the Russians. They are taking over now critical infrastructure. Last night, they opened fire and set fire to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, and then eventually took over that power plant. They already did take over the disaster site at Chernobyl nuclear power plant as well. So what more is being requested of the U.S. government by your committee and by others similar, based on the communications that you have had with those that are still in Ukraine?
Well, I think it's important to note that Russia is one of the world's greatest superpowers. And the United States also has the status of being a superpower. And a lot of Ukrainian Americans, we're trying to urge our government to take greater action to do what a world superpower would do and provide greater aid, quicker aid, and promoting just more manpower in Ukraine.
We're joined by Tania Smyk, a Ukrainian student at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, also a member of the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan, joining us on the Megacast. And we talk about those that are fleeing the country, that are attempting to seek refugee status in neighboring countries, and especially in places like the United States, where there are large pockets of Ukrainian American populations, including right here in Michigan. In the past couple of days, refugee transport routes have been negotiated by the Ukrainian and the Russian governments, by the United Nations as well. But we talk about the refugee crisis. 1 million people in a week sounds like a lot, but Ukraine is a very large country, and these major cities continue to be under siege by the Russian government in frankly brutal fashion. How much quicker does the refugee transport from Ukraine need to be to really truly protect those that are sheltering in place right now in Ukraine and need safe passage out of the country as Russia continues to show less and less regard for the lives of Ukrainians?
I mean, the situation there is dire. There's plenty of people who, over there, they're receiving propaganda from other cities saying, oh, it's okay, it's quiet here, which is absolutely not the case. And the awareness over there needs to be pushed, and the efforts over here need to be pushed further to promote people to come over to seek safety, because at this point you're dealing with life and death, and these are individuals, these are human lives that they need to be able to continue their precious lives.
And it affects those in Ukraine, certainly, and it affects their families. And there's such a great population of Ukrainian Americans right here in Michigan, right here in the Oakland County area and southeastern Michigan as well. For those that may not be aware, just how extensive is that Ukrainian American population right here in Michigan?
To my knowledge, there's approximately 40,000 Ukrainians in the state of Michigan, and about 20,000 of those are concentrated in the metro area of Detroit.
Yeah, and so it's a significant population here in the metro area. We've seen great shows of support. Thousands of people showed downtown last weekend on Sunday in a rally to show support for Ukrainians and especially for their Ukrainian American friends, neighbors, colleagues, and other acquaintances in the area who are also, in some ways, and it pales in comparison to those who are physically in Ukraine right now, but are also suffering through witnessing this heinous act of violence from Vladimir Putin and his tyrannical government in Russia. And people want to show the support. They want to provide support to Ukrainians, certainly, but also to their Ukrainian American families here in Michigan and in the U.S. as this situation continues, as this war continues. At this moment in time, what are the best ways that those in our communities here in Oakland County and in the state of Michigan can support those in Ukraine?
The best ways that these people here can support Ukraine, we have plenty of resources on our website. You can go visit the crisis response website at uacrisisresponse.org, and on there will be plenty of resources where you can contribute financial donations to reputable sources, provide physical materials as donations. We currently have a drive going on in Warren for certain materials that are being requested over there that are getting more difficult to find as the war continues. And honestly, just supporting the Ukrainians that you know. I mean, a lot of us, we're experiencing emotions that we've never felt before. We're experiencing a situation that is so emotionally traumatic. It's nothing in comparison to what they're dealing with over in Ukraine, but still where the diaspora population is being strongly, strongly affected by this. And just checking in with your Ukrainian friends, your Ukrainian neighbors, it really goes a long way.
We're joined by Tania Smyk, a Ukrainian student at the College for Creative Studies, also a member of the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan. As she mentioned, you go to their website, you can learn a lot more information. You can find resources to continue to understand the context of what's going on in Ukraine right now, what has led up to this illegal invasion and, frankly, the war crimes being committed by Russia in Ukraine, as well as ways that you can help directly right now, take action and donate to provide support through the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan. uacrisisresponse.org is the website. Again, uacrisisresponse.org for more information from the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan. Tania, just a couple more minutes with you before we'll need to say goodbye today. At this time, anything else that people should be keeping in mind about the ongoing war in Ukraine, the way that they can support Ukrainian Americans in our community, or how they can get involved if they would like to support the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan in its response and its encouragement of further response from our government in Michigan and across the U.S.?
In terms of helping out directly, we have a volunteer application on our website that you are able to fill out if you feel that you have any business, legal, language skills that we might be able to use. And then just in terms of the situation, stay aware of what's going on. It is a very, very complicated situation, but please do your best to stay aware of the situation. This is going to affect more than just Ukraine. This is affecting the world at a global scale. Stay aware, be aware of what propaganda might be circulating, and focus on myth busting and making sure that you and the people around you understand the situation.
Tania, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this very complicated crisis that's affecting millions of people around the world, including those here in Michigan.
Thank you.
Again, the website, uacrisisresponse.org. Right now, they're looking for a number of different materials, including high-priority medical needs, humanitarian needs as well. They have links for all of these different needs on their website. If you go to uacrisisresponse.org/events, they have a list of medical supplies that they need, humanitarian needs, important donation guidelines as well, and volunteer information. As Tania mentioned, they're looking for their priority right now, as listed on the website. I'll read it directly. Currently, our priority is to find a bilingual English and Ukrainian person with administrative skills to help manage our inbox and volunteer coordination. If you have the skills and the time, they ask that you contact Anya Nona directly. Otherwise, please fill out the application on their website, and that application is linked directly at uacrisisresponse.org/events under the volunteer category right there at the top of, in the middle of that page. Again, uacrisisresponse.org for more information from the Ukrainian American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we'll continue the Oakland County Megacast. We'll talk about Ukraine. We'll talk about other issues affecting the state of Michigan and as well as legislation coming down the pike in Lansing with Senator Mallory McMorrow, a Democrat from Michigan's 13th senatorial district here in Oakland County. That's coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Joining us now is State Senator Mallory McMorrow. She is a Democrat from Michigan's 13th District, joining us on the Megacast. Senator, thank you for being with us today.
Hey, Tyler. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning to you as well. Thanks for coming on. So recently you tweeted saying, quote, "In Michigan, horror on the world stage is horror at home. I stand with our Ukrainian American neighbors. The United States has always stood firm against authoritarian regimes and must stand together against Vladimir Putin, a man who will stop at nothing to watch democracy fail." Can you talk about the invasion of Ukraine and President Putin, and why this is such a blow to everyone, including people right here in Michigan, despite this the crux of this issue being hundreds of thousands of miles away from us?
Absolutely. I mean, it was hard the other day to wake up and realize the world is at war again. And whether or not it's here on our shores, it's the largest war in Europe that we've seen since World War II. And Michigan does have a significant Ukrainian American population, including here in Oakland County, right here in our district. We have thousands of residents who have family in Ukraine. So it really is an attack on Michiganders and people who we love and who are our neighbors. But more than that, I think it points to the concerning rise globally that we've seen in this kind of retreat towards nationalism, authoritarianism, and this was it, right? This is the moment where we see Putin, I think, probably over-assuming that is where the country is that we are retreating to nationalism. And it has been, as horrific as it is inspiring to see how many countries, people are rallying around Ukraine, the Ukrainians fighting for their lives, seeing 80-year-olds shine up to join the military, seeing families doing everything they possibly can, and seeing the world rally around them. So it is still an absolutely horrifying moment, and we have to do everything we can to support Ukraine. But I think also reassuring that democracy is worth fighting for, and the world is going to come out to fight for democracy.
Of course, here in the state of Michigan, not a whole lot from a leadership standpoint can be done to directly address the conflict that's underway across the ocean over there in Eastern Europe and Ukraine because of the invasion by Russia. But that being said, as you mentioned, there is a quite significant Ukrainian American population here in Oakland County and in the Detroit area. Heck, we had over 1,000 people down at Hart Plaza yesterday at a rally in support of those in Ukraine and stopping the war over in Ukraine. So for you as a leader here in the state of Michigan with our Ukrainian American population, and given the response by our federal government in the immediate aftermath of Vladimir Putin and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, what it seems to be the reaction from your constituents here in the 13th District to the response from our federal government, and what sort of requests or information have they given you in terms of their opinion on the response? And is it enough? Does it seem to be enough, in their opinion, of an effort from us here in the U.S. to protect our allies in Ukraine.
Yeah, I will say, I've been overwhelmed by the number of constituents who have reached out and just said, number one, as your constituent, please make our stance clear that we stand with Ukraine against this horrific attack from Putin, this unwarranted attack. But then beyond that, people are just asking how they can help. I think that it's one of the things that we wanted to state pretty clearly in my statement is, although my role doesn't work on kind of foreign affairs in any regular basis, we do have a significant population here at home. So we are in touch with our Ukrainian community here in Michigan and in the district. We're taking a lead from them. A few of my colleagues and I are potentially working on a resolution to be introduced, potentially encouraging the federal government to do more, particularly around investments that have been made by Russian oligarchs here in the country, which is something that we can do. So there's more to come, but we are really taking the lead from the community directly, because these are Ukrainian Americans who do have family there, who are really leading the way for us and really telling me what they need me to do as their state legislator.
We're joined by State Senator Mallory McMorrow, a Democrat from Michigan's 13th district here on the Megacast, representing Royal Oak here in the state on more local issues and statewide issues. Everyone will see from time to time petition seekers out on the town in public spaces, maybe even going door to door to get signatures for petitions. Sometimes those petitions are well-intentioned and maybe ever so slightly misinforming. Other times they may be deliberately misinforming. You and other colleagues of yours in Lansing are taking action on that, or at least attempting to take some action on preventing that, or at least giving some agency to those that sign these petitions to, if they come to realize that this information may not be what they thought it was, that they can pull their name from that petition. Can you give us some insight on this legislation that you and your colleagues have been working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to kind of set the stage quickly is here in Michigan, I think that the petition initiative process is a very powerful tool that we have worth protecting. And it is one that not every state has, where residents can take action to put an issue on the ballot if they feel like the legislature is not taking action. This is the process by which we got the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to finally take the drawing of our congressional and legislative lines out of the hands of legislators. It's also how we legalized recreational marijuana. But it's still a system that needs reform. There are actors out there who are abusing this system. There is currently a loophole in the way that our laws work, where the legislature has the first crack at a petition initiative. So if an initiative collects enough signatures, the legislature can choose to adopt that internally and pass it without it ever going to the ballot. And if that happens, that passes into law and the governor cannot veto it. So there are some groups that are using it intentionally to get to the legislature to put something forward that may not be the will of a majority of residents to get out of the governor's veto. But then there's also just the reality that there are more than a dozen potential petitions circulating right now. And it is legal right now for a circulator to lie to you about what it does. An example from a reporter from MLive was he was approached outside of a supermarket and a circulator said, "Would you sign a petition to help special needs kids in the state?" That was the question. No additional information. And most people would probably instinctually say, of course, yes, what do we need to do? But the reality was this petition was the petition that has been funded by the DeVosses and many other organizations to create school vouchers in Michigan, which would effectively cut the school aid fund by over $1 billion over the next 5 years and be a hurt to public education. So it's one of those things where we think that it's a powerful tool that needs to be held intact, but we have to protect the integrity of this tool. So we have a package of bills that would create penalties for organizations that are intentionally lying or misleading residents about what it is. And then my bill in the package would allow you, let's say, you were approached by this circulator who asked if you wanted to help special needs kids. You said, absolutely. You signed it. You went home later. Let's say you read a little bit more about what this petition does and you felt misled and said, I actually don't support that you would have the ability to request that your signature be removed from that petition so that you feel confident in what you're supporting as a voter.
It's an interesting balance because on one hand, the public and citizens do have a right to file petitions, to petition for legislation, or to petition on a certain number of issues. That you need to be careful in trying to keep that pure without preventing people from being able to have that ability to file those petitions. So on that note, what protections then are in place for those that maybe are putting these petitions out there? Maybe they are unintentionally misleading and people are signing them and eventually pulling that out. Is there going to be penalty then in that case if someone's not deliberately misleading people, or if simply those that are signing these petitions aren't reading that information before they're signing?
Yeah, and that's the balance that we tried to strike, right? I think that we have to protect this process, and we're not trying to eliminate the ability for people to put petitions forward, because it is a powerful tool. But I had an interesting exchange with a petition circulator on Twitter who said, I'm a paid circulator. It pays $30, $40 an hour. That's a great job. And said, I support the idea of scholarships for students because the language that's used sounds really, really positive. But again, that is the initiative that would create a school voucher program that would cut the school aid fund significantly. So I had a back and forth with this individual and kind of explained a little bit more about what this petition does. And I think that highlighted a really important point, is that a lot of the people actually doing their circulating may not know. Some of these petition initiatives are really wonky, and unless you know the policy inside and out, you may, A, want a good job that pays well and you're good at doing it, and B, think fundamentally, yeah, I do agree with this. So that's why in our package, we want to make sure that the penalties are on the groups responsible for educating the circulators about what this is and being upfront about what it does, and ensuring that the language is readily available, and not necessarily punishing people who are looking for good jobs who may unknowingly be sharing the wrong information and not doing so maliciously.
We're joined by Senator Mallory McMorrow from Michigan's 13th District here on the Megacast. She represents Royal Oak in the 13th District. And so just to continue on this topic, given that this legislation is being proposed, this is something that's in the works, may or may not end up becoming the letter of the law here in the state of Michigan, depending on where it goes from here. On the other side of things, while that responsibility should, in some way, shape, or form, be on those that are filing these petitions and are petitioning for those signatures to not misinform the public, there should also be some agency on the part of the people that are potentially signing or may have already signed these petitions, to know what they're getting involved with, to know what they're signing, or at the very least look into it before they put pen to paper. What suggestions do you and other leaders in our communities have for those individuals that may have in the past been misled in these scenarios, or may have not been misled but simply did not read what they were signing?
Absolutely. And it's tough, right? Because usually you're approached when you're outside of a grocery store. You probably have your hands full. You might have your kid with you. I have a 1-year-old, so I know how hectic it is. And you may not have time to read and think about it. So my go-to, and what I'm suggesting everybody do right now, is don't sign anything when it's put in front of you right away. Ask the circulator if there's a website where they can go home and learn more information. Frankly, that's what I'm doing right now, even when people are asking me to sign things. And this is what I do for a living. So take the time. You want to make sure that you feel confident that if your name is on something, that it's something that you genuinely support.
Yeah, and that goes not just for these petitions, but really for any document that you are signing in general, even if it's something you've signed before. And, I went and got an oil change recently, and signing the paper after that to authorize that I'm making that transaction, I glanced that over at least before I sign it, just to make sure that there's nothing sneaky in there, nothing predatory that might be in there. And that's always something that's got to be on the side of those that are signing these documents. You got to know what you're signing before you put pen to paper. But good to hear that there are some discussions at least about on the topic of, if somebody signs something that they ultimately don't support and they figure that out, that they can pull their name from that. While everyone has the right to petition on certain issues, and others have the right as well to sign in support of those issues, that that ability to then pull your support should also be there. We're joined by Democratic Senator Mallory McMorrow from Michigan's 13th District on the Megacast. Learn more information on the Megacast on our website, civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Also, something else that you're working on here in the state of Michigan is Senate Bill 553. Now, this is addressing safe gun storage in the wake of the shooting at Oxford High School in November of last year. Can you give us a bit of an overview of Senate Bill 553 and what this aims to do in terms of producing a safer paradigm for gun storage here in the state of Michigan?
Absolutely. And one thing that I want to point out up front is while these bills were reintroduced in the wake of the Oxford school shooting, there are dozens of bills that myself and colleagues as part of the Gun Violence Prevention Caucus have been working on for years. I've been in the legislature now for over 3 years. My colleague Robert Wittenberg actually started this caucus, so it has been many years in the making of legislation to try to prevent gun violence and make sure that we're striking that balance of respecting the Second Amendment, but making sure we are encouraging responsible gun ownership and preventing horrible events from happening and taking lives. And, you know, I think the school shootings, especially like Oxford, very naturally take the headlines, but there have been a handful of incidents this year alone where children have gotten a hold of guns and they're very curious. And it's leading to serious injuries. There was a child as young as 2 this year in the Metro Detroit area who got a hold of a firearm that was just loose in a home and set it off and injured himself. So what this package of bills would do would require that any owner of a gun, if you have minors in the household, that you are required by law to safely secure that firearm. That can be with a gun lock, that can be with a safe, but it really puts the onus on, if you're a responsible gun owner, you're licensed, you've got everything you need to be carrying that weapon, that you are the one who has ownership of it, that it is not getting into the hands of the wrong people. And we had students out just last week with March for Our Lives, an advocacy organization working to prevent gun violence that was started by Parkland students in the wake of the Parkland school shooting. And we had students, high schoolers, 15, 16-year-olds in Lansing. And one of the students told me that 2 of her friends this year alone have attempted suicide with a gun that they had found in their respective homes. So this is a really powerful tool. It possibly could have prevented what happened in Oxford. Obviously, there's a lot of egregious details about the Crumbleys and their treatment of this firearm, potentially buying it for him, not getting Ethan Crumbley the help that he so desperately needed. But it could also go a long way to prevent a lot of these senseless acts of violence, particularly those suffering from mental health challenges with PTSD, thinking about suicide, or just accidents that happen. So it's something that just has to be done.
You can learn more information by visiting legislature.mi.gov to read Senate Bill 0553 from 2021. Again, that is Senate Bill 0553, legislature.mi.gov to read that legislation, that proposed legislation in full that was proposed in June of last year. We're joined by Senator Mallory McMorrow, representing Royal Oak in District 13 here in the state of Michigan. Senator, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else at this time that would be important for your constituents or others here in Oakland County to know?
Absolutely. Just this past week, we introduced, my colleagues and I, a package of bills here to tackle the high cost of prescription drugs. We know this is something here in Oakland County that's important to constituents and is incredibly frustrating that it is constantly an issue that we have not seen Congress and the federal government act on. So we introduced legislation that would create a prescription drug affordability board here in the state of Michigan that would really replicate what we see with the Public Services Commission that currently operates to oversee utility costs. The utility providers have to submit their rate cases to the Public Services Commission for approval. And if there's an egregious rate increase, the commission has the power to act. So this would create something similar for prescription drugs and create a forum where drug manufacturers could come, they could defend, they could say why a drug is priced the way it is, but would potentially give us a very, very powerful tool to bring the maximum cost down for Michigan residents here. And it's something that multiple other states have done so far. And we are optimistic that this will be really impactful for our residents. And we're hopeful that it moves forward.
Senator, thank you very much for joining us, giving us some insight into legislation that you're working on, other things that are in the works as well, and some insight on our Ukrainian-American response to what's going on in Ukraine with the Russian invasion on today's Megacast. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you, Tyler.
Whether you're the city,
The county.
or the Huron River Watershed Council.
as partners working together to protect our water resources, we agree.
Pet waste is a source of harmful bacteria in the Huron River.
When it's left on the ground, it can wash into the storm drains.
These lead directly to our streams. No filters, no treatment.
Here's one thing we know that can help keep our water clean.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
Pick up pet waste and trash it.
So pick up pet waste and trash it.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
To Sophia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
72.7% of high school students get less than the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. This can cause pain, obesity, and can very negatively affect your mental health. When you have a consistent 7 to 9 hours of sleep every day, you get sick less often, lose more weight, and have better relationships with those around you. For more information about the dangers of sleep deprivation, go to sleepfoundation.org. This message is brought to you by the WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. You can learn more about the Oakland County Megacast by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find links to every single one of our partnering community television and radio stations, as well as our web outlets such as My Michigan TV that will join us at 11 o'clock. Joining us now on the Michigan Megacast is Kelli Waite, the Director of Admissions and Programs at Rose Hill Center, located in Holly, joining us on the Megacast. Kelli, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So first off, for those that may not be familiar, we've had the Rose Hill Center on with us before, but those that may not have watched that or may not be familiar with the work that the Rose Hill Center does, can you give us an explanation, a brief explanation about the programs that are available through the Rose Hill Center in Holly?
Yes, so Rose Hill Center is a residential treatment center for adults who have mental health issues that they're trying to resolve. So our main goal is to provide treatment for folks, evidence-based therapy practices, and also we have a strong vocational component to our program as well. We're on 411 acres. We have a working farm, a greenhouse, kitchen, and horticulture housekeeping crews, that work throughout the program, and they just learn how to live a functional life while recovering from their mental health issues.
So there are many different mental health facilities throughout the state of Michigan that deal with people with varying severity of mental health crises. What's the difference between some of those and a place like the Rose Hill Center in terms of what programs are provided, your approach to supporting those that are attempting to rehabilitate from serious mental illness and so on?
So a lot of treatment is either outpatient or it's short-term residential, meaning 30, 60, 90 days. Rose Hill is set up to be a 6 to 9 month program that teaches people how to rejoin a community in a consistent and meaningful way. So we run programs simultaneously with our vocational programs such as dialectical behavioral therapy, radically open DBT, we do CBT, we have autism specialists that come on campus and work with folks who are diagnosed with mental health issues as well as an autism spectrum disorder. And we also support people who have mental health issues and substance use issues at the same time as well.
We're joined by Kelli Waite, the Director of Admissions and Programs at the Rose Hill Center located in Holly, Michigan, joining us on the Megacast. And so for those that will be we'll be having the services of the Rose Hill Center, helping them in rehabilitating or learning to deal with their own serious mental health conditions. How do they get referred? Are they referred to the Rose Hill Center? Are they admitting themselves? What is the process generally for being admitted into Rose Hill's programs?
Well, we have a website, rosehillcenter.org, and that will tell you everything you need to know about admissions for yourself or a loved one. But we take referrals from all over the country, really. We work with and have good relationships with lots of other treatment centers. And, you know, every treatment center has their own specialty or their niche that they do. So a lot of our referrals come from other treatment centers who are looking for that extended programming, that extended treatment. But you can just simply go to our website. Our admissions line number is on there, and you can call in that manner.
We're joined by Kelli Waite, the Director of Admissions and Programs at the Rose Hill Center, joining us on the Megacast. Again, it's rosehillcenter.org to learn more information. And Kelli, just recently, late last month, the center received a $50,000 donation from the Ethel and James Flinn Foundation in a grant to support its ongoing work to implement what is called a trauma-informed care environment within its comprehensive psychiatric treatment and residential rehabilitation programs. Can you tell us about TIC and what sort of sets this treatment method apart from others and how effective it is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so at Rose Hill, we affectionately refer to it as TIC. It's our TIC committee. So trauma-informed care, we got our first grant actually from the Flinn Foundation in 2019. And that allowed us to train and provide education and tools for our staff to help them become trauma-informed. So the National Council on Mental Wellbeing assumes that every person has had a trauma in their life, right? So if we're trauma informed in the way that we deliver services and the way that we run our organization, then we have a little bit more of an ability to build trust and be transparent with those that we're treating, and we're able to help just a little bit better. So this year we got the $50,000 grant, and what we're doing is we are adding stronger leadership and supervision components to our culture through the resiliency-oriented training. So that means that we're going to be creating systems that effectively respond to trauma and that we're going to be able to resist re-traumatization. So a lot of times when folks are struggling with mental health issues, they are having behavioral issues, they're having symptom breakthrough that family members don't understand or can't handle, and they become involved with the law, they become hospitalized, they become court-ordered to treatment, and things of that nature. So when we're looking at trauma-informed care through this new lens, we're trying to understand the trauma that they've been through as well and not add any additional trauma in the course of treatment.
We're joined by Kelli Waite. She is the Director of Admissions and Programs at the Rose Hill Center, joining us on the Megacast. Rose Hill Center located in Holly and online at rosehillcenter.org. That is rosehillcenter.org. Learn more information also by calling them at 248-634-5530, 248-634-5530. The TIC environment, it's a different approach than maybe more typically employed at mental health facilities, long-term and short-term, across the state and across the country. In implementing TIC programs at the Rose Hill Center, what have you and your colleagues found to have been the results of using this method versus some other methods of treatment and rehabilitation in the effectiveness of helping those patients of yours, those clients of yours, cope with their mental health conditions and learn those coping mechanisms that are so critical to living a normal life out in society, in spite of their mental health condition?
So trauma-informed care, I kind of look at it as like an umbrella that goes over all of the different treatment modalities that we use. So we're still going to use all those different therapeutic modalities. We're still going to use our vocational programming, everything that we've had in our foundation so far. But trauma-informed care really looks at the culture, and it looks at the way in which the staff interact with the residents and the way in which the organization interacts with all of the staff. So when you implement things like that, like a good example would be one of the initiatives that we're doing this year is that we have offices like everyone would have in their building, right? So you have a desk, the provider sits on one side, the resident or the staff sit on the other side. We're looking at getting more comfortable chairs that sit around tables in each of the offices so that the environment is more therapeutic. So it's just all of the little nuances and all of the little ways that you interact with the residents and the staff in your organization, and just making sure that it's a comfortable, supportive, safe environment for everybody, psychologically and physically.
And so, like any sort of training program, psychologically, medically, or otherwise, there is some training that is behind it. I would imagine for the TIC program like this, because it is so focused on the context of one person's trauma in their mental health recovery and in their rehabilitation and the learning of coping mechanisms. What kind of training goes into your professionals at the Rose Hill Center being ready to undertake helping patients, helping clients through these TIC programs?
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things that we do is we teach everybody how to recognize symptoms of trauma, and we teach everybody that trauma doesn't necessarily have to mean the same thing to me as it does to you. So if we were both on our morning commute to work this morning and we both got into a small fender bender, based on my trauma, I may have not been able to make it to work because I might have been too shaken up, but you being in the same sort of fender bender might have been able just to carry on. So we teach that trauma is different for everybody, but there's some universal symptoms that you can recognize, like if somebody's shutting down, if they're not willing to participate. A lot of times when people are doing well, we tend to look around them and see what is it that they're getting a hold of that's helping them do well in their life. So trauma is the same way. If somebody's showing symptoms of withdrawal, of increased agitation, of increased anxiety, looking within ourselves and figuring out what do we have going on in our environment that's contributing to that, and what can we change, what do we need to keep, and what do we need to stop doing or start doing. So that is one of the big components of this training, is just basically looking at what are we doing and how are we contributing to somebody's feeling of safety.
Do you find that there are certain patients, certain clients that TIC programs may not be effective for, or is this something that the Rose Hill Center and other organizations similar to it throughout the U.S., throughout the world, may employ in a general sense?
I think TIC is really for everybody, because I think everyone can benefit from having more transparent, having more safe, having more collaborative work environments and treatment environments. I do think that the more you get into it, the more you see what things need to change on an organizational level. And that's kind of what's brought us to the supervision and the leadership resiliency-oriented teams that we're getting ready to start now.
We're joined by Kelli Waite, the Director of Admissions and Programs at the Rose Hill Center, located in Holly, Michigan, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. Learn more information in a couple of ways. Calling their number at 248-634-5530, 248-634-5530, or visiting rosehillcenter.org. That is rosehillcenter.org. And so this $50,000 donation from the Ethel and James Flinn Foundation, it's not the first donation that the Rose Hill Center has received from this foundation, this grant of $50,000 to support the TIC programs. How important are these sorts of donations to organizations like yours to be able to expand your programs, continue to develop programs such as TIC and other rehabilitation programs provided through your center in order to provide the best care as possible to those that will be admitted to the Rose Hill Center?
As a nonprofit organization, this money that we receive from the Flinn Foundation is just unbelievable. It's an unbelievable opportunity for us. We've worked closely and partnered with the Flinn Foundation for a while, and I think it might be because we both have similar beginnings. Both the Flinn Foundation and Rose Hill Center were founded by family members who were looking for mental health treatment and best evidence-based practices that were just not available to the wider communities. And so both of our organizations, I feel, are working towards that goal. So this money that we received is just, it just does great things for us that we would not have been able to do, training that we would not have been able to receive as early on as we have if they weren't there to support us.
Kelli, just another couple of minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. For those that may not be familiar with the Rose Hill Center or how a mental health program like one might experience in an organization like the Rose Hill Center, can you take us through a little bit of the process that patients will go through when they are admitted to the Rose Hill Center, through their treatment, and then eventually when they are discharged from the Rose Hill Center?
Absolutely. So when you come to Rose Hill Center, you begin working with your treatment team, and you will have a case manager, a therapist. Our psychiatrist is one of the best. And you just work on stabilizing your medication, recognizing your symptoms, gaining insight and awareness. And then the main goal of our treatment center is to help folks live with their symptoms as independently as possible. So you come into our program in what we call the residential rehabilitation program, and then we have various programs throughout your stay that will increase your level of independence as you go, but still provide that support that you need. And then the end goal for us is to have folks discharged back into the communities in which they came and have a meaningful daily life, working, going to school, interacting with your family and friends, having a good social life. And sometimes folks stay in our area and they come back and volunteer and just help the next round of people go through their treatment as well. We tend to have a good mix of both.
Kelli, just another minute with you before we'll say goodbye. Anything else at this time that people should know about the Rose Hill Center, about its TIC programs, or any other programs that are available through your nonprofit organization?
Yeah, Rose Hill is always there to help. If you need to call into our admission line or that main line, and we can get you directed towards the service that you need. But also just know that trauma-informed care is for everyone. Trauma-informed care has been working with companies that are not necessarily in the mental health field. And just recognizing how other people may be responding to the events going on around them, especially with everything going on right now, is just really important.
Kelli, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You can learn more information again on the website rosehillcenter.org. That is rosehillcenter.org. We're calling 248-634-5530, 248-634-5530 to learn more about the Rose Hill Center. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we'll go to we'll talk about another nonprofit that is supporting children and families that may be experiencing neglect. With Bob Ennis, the founder and the president of the Ennis Center for Children. That's coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Neighborhood storm drains carry water directly to local creeks and streams. No filters, no treatment.
Storm drains also help reduce street flooding when it rains.
So clearing storm drains and the areas nearby of trash and leaves helps keep them for rain only.
It is easy to do your part by adopting a storm drain.
Find a storm drain, check it, and clear it every month.
So keep storm drains for rain only.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
We as Michiganders feel connected to this resource in a way that I think is really powerful.
Conservation starts with a caring, committed community.
For me, it's peaceful to have a relationship with the river.
Every single one of us has a role to make sure that those waterways stay safe and healthy, being careful about what goes down the storm drain.
Just even eliminating some of your single-use plastic makes a difference.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Did you know that nearly 3.31 million Americans don't get their annual checkup? Going to the doctor regularly is extremely important and is a crucial factor in maintaining good health. Make sure you are visiting your local doctor often and telling them about any health concerns you have. For more information, contact your local healthcare provider. This message is brought to you by WBHS Digital Media Arts Program and 89.3 Lakes FM.
Achoo! Joining us now is the president and the founder of the Ennis Center for Children. Bob Ennis is with us on the Megacast. Bob, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So your organization works with abused and neglected children, has done so for over 43 years here in the state of Michigan, reaching in that time over 3,500 Michigan children and families in crisis. What was your motivation? You're the founder of this organization. What was your motivation initially 43 years ago to found this organization, and what is the mission of the organization at this time?
Well, I founded it because I was in foster care myself, but it wasn't the formal foster care. I was in foster care by my grandparents, which is not unusual. My parents had issues, and my grandmother and uncles and grandfather came and got me and put me in foster care. And I guess I knew back 8 or 9 years old I was going to eventually work with children and families. And many, many, many years later, I'm still doing it. So the mission is to return kids home when we can. And we can't, to create a family for them through adoption or some other method, through a relative or someone, so that they have a forever home.
And so you have many locations across the state of Michigan, helping children all across our state that are in a situation of abuse or neglect, or even just in a situation where their family might be in crisis and the children are in need of additional services at any given time. So with these locations across the state, all of them have pretty similar services provided as the other. What are some of the services that are provided to these children, but also to their families who are in a really difficult situation?
Okay, well, in addition to, quote, traditional foster care, which is the court removes the child after PS substantiates abuse or neglect, and the court decides to go into foster care, then the court contracts with us. So then you see children and their families, visits, sometimes supervised visits to families who have maybe severe abuse issues that you have to observe and hopefully teach them how to better interact with their children. But in addition to those services, we also provide therapy for families and children ourselves. We have our own psychiatrist, our own trained licensed therapist, etc. And we also create other programs that we think are important. We've been for the last 7 years doing a lot of art therapy, but not traditional, just drawing. Everything from tap dancing to music to dance, to whatever it may be, to get a child to learn how to express themselves and to socialize with other children. In fact, I just got off a meeting where we were working with a national organization that's using some of these kids' poetry, which is sometimes pretty devastating with a lot of suicidal ideation for your young children. And so we're always mindful that we have to treat those children and families to get them home. When we can't, then the court terminates rights, then we move towards adoption as an option once the rights are terminated and the state legally becomes their parent. So in addition to that, we do tutoring, mentoring, individual counseling, a lot of activities for our kids and exposures to different things in their own communities and better ways to choose life choices, not just playing pool or hanging out in the streets. What other things might you expose yourself to that you then might experience to teach you recreational and social skills? So that's a few of the things we do. We also run delinquency programs in Wayne County heavily. It's now a community-based treatment program run by one of ours. We have Hamtramck, Highland Park, and part of the East Side.
We're joined by Bob Ennis. He is the founder and the president of the Ennis Center for Children. More information on this organization by visiting their website at enniscenter.org. That is enniscenter.org, with 7 locations throughout the state of Michigan. You can learn more information about all of those locations on their website as well. And so, Bob, you mentioned community-based interventions are a critical part of the mission of your organization, is to involve the community in some of these intervention and mediary tactics that your organization is employing to children and to families that may be in crisis, to help them through that time in their life. Just how important how effective can a community-based intervention be in comparison to some other traditional interventions that may be there in helping the child or helping the family smoothly as much as possible get through whatever crisis they may be undergoing?
Well, the first thing I think after all these years, and hopefully we learned it a long time ago, but we have to learn it over and over again, and that is eventually most children are going to go home. If you don't deal with the community to have them have resources, just like if you get sick, you go to the doctor, right? Unfortunately, many of the kids who get in the system go home, something happens, and they call back the system, they get back in the system. If the community understands that these children are like any other children that need support, need help. Maybe they've had more trauma than many children, maybe they have not. They need to be supported in the old term of village. If the village isn't there, we have to create it. Again, kids are gonna eventually go home. Even in our adoptions we do, and we do a lot of adoptions in a year, eventually those kids are gonna find their birth parents. And they're gonna go back to the roots, so to speak. So if you're not dealing with the roots, how do you ever get the plant to grow? In this case, that's a poor analogy maybe, but I think the best definition of parenting I ever heard was to give a child roots and give a child wings. And often we don't realize that we've got to have the community to help us to reroot, if I can put it that way, and support the family and the children when something goes wrong. Getting in the system is easy. Getting out, quite frankly, often is hell. So the community is vastly important for us to be able to function and our kids to be able to function well.
So if someone is interested, or a family is interested in being a foster parent or a foster family and being associated with your organization, with the Ennis Center for Children, what is that process like? What are the requirements? And what do these individuals and families then undergo in the vetting process before they would be able to have the opportunity to foster a child or children?
Well, first off, they contact us primarily through our website, depending on where they are, and wherever they contact us, they'd be routed to the facility and the closest to them in Southeast Michigan, because we're primarily in Southeast, from Saginaw all the way over to Monroe. The vetting process is very stringent. It takes about 2.5, 3 months at best to get a person a license to become a foster parent. We want to make sure we make the right match, that we've interviewed the people in the family to make sure that they're suitable, have no criminal record that relates to hurting children, that they're over 21 years old, that they have the means to take care of themselves, and they're not utilizing the little money they get in terms of age-appropriate board and care just for themselves. We want to make sure what the impact is on the other children, the primary children, the birth children in that home, so we don't disturb that terribly, because a child coming in is going to have trauma, and they're going to usually raise some heck for a while. So that affects husband, that affects other siblings. We want to make sure that that works well. And we're available 24/7 to those families. They get training and retraining. They get physicals. They get background checks. They get everything. And then we continue to do that training ongoing. But the key is support. To us, raising children is a job. Some people get angry with me because I say that, but I think it is a job. It's a job you have to do with love and concern. If you don't get support, it's hard to do that.
We're joined by Bob Ennis. He is the founder and the president of the Ennis Center for Children, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. You can learn more information about the Ennis Center for Children at enniscenter.org. That is enniscenter.org, or by calling 888-200-8915, 888-200-8915. Bob, there are many ways to support the organization, to support its efforts in providing these interventions and these supports to families and children throughout the state of Michigan, on top of being a foster parent or a foster family. What are some of the other ways that people can help your organization, help these children that are in a crisis or are just in need of support from their community at any given time?
The laundry list would go back before you were born to the Sears catalog. But many of the things that we need are tutoring, support, mentorships. We always can use money, we can use clothing, but we take mostly, it's very, very gently used, if at all, but new clothes, because many of our kids have not had the right clothes that they need to have. They come to care oftentimes with garbage bags. That's another thing. Dental products, dental utensils like toothbrushes, toothpaste, overnight bags, so the kids now walking around with a garbage bag. Just 1,000 different things, everything you need for your child. Our children only get roughly $400 a year for clothing, and their incidentals and whatever. That's not enough money to make it. So our foster parents often put money out of their own pockets. So birthday stuff, at Christmas time, we need gifts and stuff for the families, that they have to have. And we try to make Christmas every day if we can, i.e., I got money from my good grades. We want to be able to do that for our children. We want to be able to get them a bike if they've done well and earn a bike, those types of things. So any way you'd want to help any other child is the kind of help we need at Ennis Center.
We're joined by Bob Ennis, the founder and the president of the Ennis Center for Children, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. More information on the Michigan Megacast on our website at civiccentertv.com/megacast, and more information on the Ennis Center for Children at enniscenter.org. Bob, I understand you have a fundraiser that's coming up soon. Can you tell us about that fundraiser and how people can participate?
I can tell you about the big one that comes up June 17th. Sure. If that's the one you have on your list. That's our annual golf outing. It's our biggest fundraiser. It's held, at the Coyote Preserve over in Fenton, Michigan, and we find all people will travel all over to golf, and that's a good thing. And that money, I think it's about early birds $195. About 50% of that money, or 40%, goes to you. Because we're a 501c3. We're a church tax-wise in terms of that. So that goes up. That helps us to support our children going forward. We're trying a new thing coming up too. I don't know the date on that. You may have it from my development officer. We're trying a virtual wine tasting. I've forgotten the day of that, but that one, I don't know if she gave you that or not. That's coming up soon as well. And that'll be the first time we've tried that. So at least people will be at home if they indulge too much on the wine. But that money would go directly again to help servicing our children and their families. But the tutoring thing, I really want to go back to mentioning again. In some of our communities, and many of them, in fact, a third of the people cannot read beyond the third grade level. So mentoring and tutoring for retired school teachers or other volunteers, because if you can't read and you don't function beyond the third grade, and you have domestic violence and you have drugs, and poverty in your home, you're likely not just to go to foster care, you're likely to go to jail. So we need all the help we can to change the system around to make it better. And that's a project we're working on right now. That's why I was a little late getting to this meeting.
We're joined by Bob Ennis. He is the president and the founder of the Ennis Center for Children, joining us on the Michigan Megacast. Bob, just another couple minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Is there any other information at this time that would be important for our audience to know about your organization, or other ways that they can help as well?
Please check out our website. Look at us on Facebook. Look at some of the many opportunities that we have. Again, you can always volunteer. You can look into this system and see as a total system, we're very short of foster parents, and this whole system needs to be overhauled. And we're in the process of doing that. I can't say it on this broadcast. It'd take too long. We've been working 3 years to overhaul it. But it needs to be overhauled because we're not doing the best job we can do, because we often follow the child and don't realize the child comes from that family, comes from that community, comes from medical issues. We have to integrate those issues. So pediatricians and doctors listening in a catchment area, we need you as well, because most of our kids have Medicaid and many doctors don't take it, but our kids need to do that. Our kids only get one pair of glasses. I notice you and I both are wearing glasses, but they only get one pair a year. And so people, ophthalmologists, who can maybe donate some of those things would be very helpful to us. So I could make those lists long, but those are some of the immediate types of needs we need now. But we're very blessed to be fortunate enough to service these families and treat them with respect.
More information and more ways that you can help by visiting nscenter.org. Bob, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for the interview. Have a blessed day.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at ivaccinate.org.
We may come from different organizations,
but we work together to protect the Huron River for everyone.
Most of the pollution that goes into our rivers is carried by rainwater that flows off of roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
The leaves and bark of a single tree can retain a surprising amount of rainwater. Depending on its size and species, it could be 100 gallons or more.
It is estimated that an urban forest can reduce annual runoff by up to 7%.
Here's one thing that we know can help keep our water clean.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
Plant a tree.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking. Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
If you are struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to a $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit or call toll-free at 833-511-0311.
A public service announcement from 89.3 Lakes FM.
Whether you're the city,
the county,
or the Huron River Watershed Council,
we work together to protect water resources for everyone.
Most of the pollution entering our rivers is carried by rainwater that runs off roads, parking lots, and rooftops.
a rain garden helps catch stormwater runoff.
Rain gardens and their plants help dirty runoff soak into the ground.
You can do your part to help keep our water clean.
Learn about rain gardens and native plants.
So consider a rain garden in your home landscaping.
Catch the runoff with a rain garden.
There's one water, and it's ours to protect.
Welcome back to the Michigan Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe. To learn more about the program by visiting our website at civiccentertv.com, clicking on our Megacast link, where you'll find information about every one of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets, including My Michigan TV, and find all of our episodes and each individual interview on demand. civiccentertv.com/megacast. Joining us now is the director of the Michigan Alliance for Families, a Share Detroit-supported charity and nonprofit. Kanika Littleton joins us now on the Megacast. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So first off, tell us about the Michigan Alliance for Families and give us a summary of what your organization does, how it came to be, and who it serves here in Michigan.
All right, so the Michigan Alliance for Families is a free statewide resource assisting families of children and young adults aged birth to 26 who have students either receiving special education services or who are eligible to receive those services. Long story short, the organization started with a couple of very determined parents who were looking to increase positive educational outcomes for students with disabilities in Michigan. And so we received a grant from the Michigan Department of Education Office of Special Education in 2006 to become one of their IDEA, or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, grant-funded initiatives to serve families across Michigan. And we received the federal funding from the Federal Office of Special Education Programs in 2009 to become Michigan's Parent Training and Information Center. And so we do assist families all across the state with anything special education related.
You can find more information on their website, MichiganAllianceForFamilies.org. That is MichiganAllianceForFamilies.org. And so, Kanika, just navigating the special education system in your local school district for many parents, for many families, can be a hassle in and of itself, can be a very difficult process, even if it's been clearly diagnosed that a child may have a disability of some sort, may have a special need and be in need of those additional educational initiatives through their school district. How does your organization help parents, especially as their kids are entering school age or as their kids are then at some point needing to enter a special education program within their school district, how does your organization provide resources and help these parents, help these families navigate their local special ed system?
So we, I have to say first that all of our staff are parents or close family members of an individual with a disability who has been through special education or early intervention services in the state of Michigan. And so we are all very familiar with the process. We're all trained in listening, communicating, and problem solving. And so our regional parent mentors, we've broken the state up into 19 different regions, and each of those regions has a regional parent mentor assigned to that area. They're familiar with the local and state resources in their community, and they have been very familiar with the special education assistance in those communities as well. So our core services are to offer information and resources to families, also referrals to community resources. We have a very comprehensive website with a lot of different disability-related information, videos, anything that a parent would need to, especially when they're first getting started in this process and their child has been newly diagnosed with a disability, and they're looking to find out how that disability is going to affect their child in school. They can contact our regional parent mentors to walk them through the process. Our regional parent mentors mentor families one-on-one to help navigate the process, to understand their rights and protections under the state and federal special education laws and rules and regulations, to get connected and be able to communicate with their child's educational team in school, problem solve anything that may go wrong, and to help them prepare for school meetings and things like that. The next thing that we do is our statewide learning opportunities, which we're doing all virtually right now due to the pandemic. We offer learning opportunities on a number of different disability and special education related topics, as well as early intervention for our younger kiddos who are just getting into receiving services, and transitioning to adulthood for our students who are at that transition age where they're getting ready to maybe graduate from school or continue on to a transition program for youth with disabilities. We help to navigate that as well. And so we do offer learning opportunities or workshops on those areas as well. And then the other thing that we do is to mentor and educate emerging parent leaders. So I'm talking about those parents who are ready to move beyond just helping their own child, but want to assist other families in being able to help their children as well. So they might be starting a support group or getting on a local or state committee that looks at issues related to special education. So we do that as well. We also have professionals contacting us who attend our workshops or who talk to our parent mentors. So educators who work with children with disabilities, school social workers or psychologists, community mental health people will contact us about getting services for foster care students. So just a number of different people who contact us, and we're able to help them navigate that system. And if it becomes a situation where they need a referral for something else, we're able to assist with that as well.
We're joined by Kanika Littleton, the director of the Michigan Alliance for Families, joining us on the Megacast. More information in a couple places on sharedetroit.org, where they're one of 280 charities and nonprofits supported by Share Detroit, with information on their website, or by going directly to the organization's website at MichiganAllianceForFamilies.org. That is MichiganAllianceForFamilies.org, where they have a list of different resources, upcoming events, and ways for you to get involved as well with the Michigan Alliance for Families. And Kanika, over the course of the pandemic, of course, education, parenting has been heavily impacted, especially parenting as it regards to a child's education for all parents. But it's especially, I would imagine, difficult for parents with children who have special needs, who have some sort of a disability, to navigate not only their child's life during the pandemic, but their child's education during the pandemic. So over the last 2 years almost that we've been dealing with COVID-19, how has the work of your alliance had to change or had to be varied in order to provide that additional support to these parents who have children that have special needs?
So over the course of the pandemic, one of the issues that has arose is the communication between parents and educators as far as how are their children going to continue to be educated and receive the proper services, especially when schools were just providing services remotely. That was very difficult for some of our students with disabilities to be able to navigate very well. So the Michigan Alliance for Families, we have a number of different partners that we work with. And one of those partners is the Special Education Mediation Services, which is another grant-funded initiative that receives support through the Michigan Department of Education. We came together and developed a number of different workshops and resources around communicating with educators during the pandemic, around remote learning, around being a partner with your educational team in remote learning. A lot of parents had to assist with different tasks, assist with school and essentially become teachers and service providers themselves. So getting that information to them was really essential, especially during the early days of the pandemic. We do have a web page on our website that is specifically dedicated to COVID-19. So we do post information, updated information and guidance from the Michigan Department of Education, as well as the Federal Office of Special Education Programs. So anytime there is an update or new guidance on how to teach children during the pandemic, or children might have mental health issues that arise because of the trauma due to the pandemic. All of those things we house on our website, as well as different videos that we've developed to help parents navigate through this process, making sure that they're communicating in a positive, collaborative way with their educational teams, making sure that they're taking social-emotional health into consideration, and making sure that they know that even though we're going through a pandemic, nothing as far as the federal or state special education law or rules and regulations have changed. It's just the way that schools are delivering those services may look different.
We're joined by Kanika Littleton, the director of the Michigan Alliance for Families, joining us on the Megacast. Their COVID-19 specific help page on their website, michiganallianceforfamilies.org/COVID-19. More information, of course, on the website in general, michiganallianceforfamilies.org. And so, Kanika, if there are parents out there who are interested in some of the resources and some of the services provided by your organization, how do they go about getting some of those services provided to them? What are the costs maybe associated with it in that whole process?
So first, there are no costs associated with any of our services, whether it's for families, professionals, or youth with disabilities themselves who sometimes contact us. The best way to get connected with us is probably to go to that website, michiganallianceforfamilies.org, or they can call our 1-800 number. It's 800-552-4821, or email us at info@michiganallianceforfamilies.org. We also are on social media. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, and Instagram. So we do have a number of people contacting us through that way as well. And, once they go through that process of contacting us, they can get in touch with, they'll be pointed to their local parent mentor who can assist them from there.
We're joined by Kanika Littleton, the director of the Michigan Alliance for Families, joining us on the Megacast. More information, of course, on the website, michiganallianceforfamilies.org. That is michiganallianceforfamilies.org. Or by visiting shareofdetroit.org, where they are one of 270 charities and nonprofits that are listed on that website, shareofdetroit.org. Kanika, just another couple of minutes with you before we'll need to say goodbye. At this time, anything else that would be important for our audience to know about the Michigan Alliance for Families, the services and the programs that are provided, or any upcoming events?
Yes, just that we are here to help. We have been through this process. We believe that increasing parental involvement in their child's education will certainly lead to better outcomes for students. And so we want to do all that we can to help make sure that parents are educated, knowledgeable about the process, and that they're an equal participant in this process. So a lot of our work and the way that people find out about us is through word of mouth. So the families who we've supported will spread the word. Different organizations that we're connected with will spread the word. So I really encourage people to go to our website, sign up for our e-newsletter. That way they're notified of special events that are coming up. We have a number of different workshops that are coming up right now around navigating the individualized education program, around supporting students' mental health needs, inclusive education through assistive technology. So we're always offering support to families and professionals and students. So just contact us and we're happy to help.
Kanika, we thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. More information on their website at michiganallianceforfamilies.org. That is michiganallianceforfamilies.org. Or you can call them. Their number, again, 800 800-552-4821. That is 800-552-4821 to learn more information, or, of course, as I mentioned previously, and as Kanika also mentioned, their website, MichiganAllianceForFamilies.org. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. Just a few more minutes left in our program today, so I want to give a big thank you to all of our guests who joined us on this edition of the Michigan Megacast and on the Oakland County Megacast today. Of course, Kanika Littleton, the director at the Michigan Alliance for Families, Bob Ennis, the founder and president of the Ennis Center for Children, as well as Kelli Waite, the director of admissions and programs at the Rose Hill Center, for joining us on the Michigan Megacast hour of the program, and of course those that joined us in the Oakland County hour. Senator Mallory McMorrow, a state senator from Michigan's 13th district here down in Oakland County, and our 1020 guest, who was Tania Smyk, the Ukrainian-American student at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, as well as a member of the Ukrainian-American Crisis Response Committee of Michigan. Thank you to all of them for joining us on today's edition of the Megacast. Of course, you can find all of those interviews, as well as our full episode from today's show and all of our shows dating all the way back to March of 2020 on our website at civiccentertv.com by clicking on our Megacast link so that you can watch it on your own time. Of course, you can always watch us live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on our family of TV, radio, and other media outlets, live to tape on certain places such as ONTV in Lake Orion and Orion Township on Channel 10 at 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. on weekdays. But of course, it's not easy to tune in for a full 2 hours every single day of your week to our live show, or even to our live to tape show. So if you want to watch on your own time, on demand, or there are only certain interviews that are really of interest to you, yourself, your family, your daily life, we give you those options on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where we list all of our partnering television, radio, and web outlets and their links, so you can learn more information about them, as well as links to find all of our full episodes and each individual interview on demand. They're usually posted sometime mid to late afternoon every single day. Again, civiccentertv.com/megacast. Also encourage you to go to our coronavirus page at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus to keep up to date on everything that you need to know about COVID-19 from the Centers for Disease Control, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and the Oakland County Health Division. We have direct links that go straight to their COVID-19 web pages, so you don't need to look all throughout the internet to find up-to-date information and accurate information about COVID-19. Big thank you to our crew as well. Calvin Brown, our technical director, with me in the studio every single day for our 2-hour extravaganza that is the Oakland County and the Michigan Megacast. Jared Clark at the office of My Michigan TV in Troy, our Zoom producer on each edition of the program. The king of television, Larry Nyland, our producer, getting everybody booked and ready for the show and helping us get ready to have detailed conversations with them. And Maddie Mustian out of Master Control, helping us smoothly get on and off the air each and every day. On My Michigan TV, great original programming coming up. Steve Leto live at 1 p.m., at 12 noon, and Larry and Maddie live at 1 p.m. We'll be back Monday at 10 a.m.